Okay, so we will get started. I have my colors out. I just took, it looks like to me, I always take out too much paint and this looks like, oh wow, this isn't enough, but I'm going to start with it. So I know there's a lot on here. I just threw out, I've got a little regular black and some Payne's gray, burnt umber for the broom handles, which I put here because I know I'll need to add Payne's gray to make it darker white, quinacridone magenta. I took out some alizarin. We can always make a alizarin with our magenta and a little Payne's gray or black. And the yellow ochre, just that primary yellow and some orange. Oh, and I meant to take out, I really am liking this cadmium yellow because it's, I mean, I could very super easy just mix these two together and get it. And now I'm kind of being lazy and I have it. So it's just a little bit more of a gold yellow. My phthalo blue. And then I took out a bunch of teals for the sky. Again, if you wanted to mix phthalo blue and phthalo green and some white, you get a teal and just you can adjust with white to get it lighter or bluer. I have all these paints I'm wanting to use up here in Maine too. You know, I have all of the teals and things, so I just threw a bunch out. And again, you could have any color sky you like. Any sort of bluish sky would work. I decided against a night sky because I want their little outfits to pop. And so that's the colors. I'm going to put my sample up here a little bit. I'm going to paint just on some watercolor paper that I treated with gesso, and we will see how this takes the paint. I will make it work, but sometimes it's just a little harder to move around than others, but it's easier for me just to do this on paper this time. I did not trace all the trees and everything. I only barely needed just a horizon line because we're just going to dab in some lights and darks to make it look like a little pathway with the orange yellows to make it, you know, like fall. I didn't want to do it bright all the way, so I brought in these little areas on the sides that are just slightly darker, kind of just to light the path for that little witches that are walking along. So we'll start way back with the bluey teals. We'll put some very light trees. I wanted to make them look a little bit washy. So these are just Prussian blue, Payne's gray, any kind of a dark blue, navy, whatever you have. But I did have it pretty light. You can see it's water, it's transparent a little bit. I had a lot of transparent ones and then did a few a little darker. I did some back here, but then I ended up covering them. I did a little too heavy with my trees, like I sometimes tend to do, and then there's no sky holes showing through. So I, of course, just went back later and put the little blues in. So I'm going to try to go a little lighter on my leaves and build it up. I'm using these same colors down here. Afterwards, we'll shadow, give them some shadows under where they're walking. And then over here, I did a little bit of dark, almost like little triangle pieces coming in, like more of a big one here. I don't want to copy what's exactly here. So I did two here, one kind of here. And just from the back, they're easy to paint. And I'm sure this time around will be so much easier. My first time, I told you, I just struggled with just the shape of them and the colors of their outfits. I was kind of going back and forth. Sometimes I really work that out. On my iPad sometimes first, really, or get the colors scheme down. And this one, I sort of winged it, and then that's when I say, "Ah, I really should have planned it a little better." But it works in the end. Oh yeah, Lisa. Lisa said that they're out at twilight. Yes, that is kind of a cool time of night. Um, so okay, so let's get the background done. I'm going to use a bigger brush just to cover this paper. So all around here is going to be some sort of lightish blue, lightish turquoise, whatever you like. I am just going to kind of go into my colors. They feel real thick. I got them out a little while ago, so I may just add a little water to blend them. And I want to get a little blue in there too, not quite so turquoise, so turquoisey, so a little blue. And I'm just going to get that background done. And it's going to dry really fast because it's on this paper, but that's all right. Go a little more blue. This is looking a little turquoisey. And I think I'll thin it as I go, and you may not have to do that on your end, depending on what the surface is that you're painting on. I could get to a smaller brush eventually to get in between here, but let me do what I can with the big brush, and then I'll get a small brush to get around them a little easier. And even though the trees are going on top, I want the sky to show through. I am going to try to be a little lighter and airier on my trees, but again, when we've done trees, you see I can go back and put the sky holes in. But I am going to paint, even though it looks like you can't see much where the trees are, we still want to have that painted, and I know there's a glare, but once it dries, it won't be. And if I maybe just, I could lift it a little bit, but you'll get the idea. This is just background. We're gonna do, I did my little squared strokes on the sky with different shades of blues, and it's almost like a periwinkle here, but I just want a little texture in that sky. You could leave it plain. It depends on your style and what you want it to look like. I got real dabby and brushstrokey on this painting, and you guys know by now you can do it that way, or you could just do it, a little smoother without all those little strokes. I just like the way they look sometimes, most times. And it's only going to go down to about the horizon line for that blue of the sky. I'm not going to get super particular about getting it exactly around everything because I could paint over it a little bit with their outfits or whatnot. But I'll come back and do these little inside bits in a second. And if this was a canvas or something a little rougher than the paper, you could certainly have used the hog bristle brushes for this. I've been going back and forth between them, depending on if it's a canvas with the texture. You know what I didn't get out is some flesh color, which really is super easy to make with just a little pink and orange and white. So maybe I won't even bother getting it out. It's easy to mix. All we need it for is their little hands, really. Their hands aren't real detailed, they're just little ovals. And again, I know it's a little bit shiny, but and you know what else? Another reason I think I do all those little textured stroke is because if my background in my painting is a little uneven and not really blended really smooth, it's a nice base for those little strokes. And it also allows me to get a little lighter or darker in places. So say I wanted a really like a light spot here, I could just do more little squares, dabs of a lighter blue and get darker here and kind of give you that illusion of a bright. So you can use, I like to use those, it's like mark making, but I'd like to have, you could use, them for shadows and highlights as well. So I'm just going to wash off this brush, and I may as well, you know how I like to cover the canvas. I'll come down here and get the golds and yellows in, but let me get those little tiny bits in there. You could use any small brush if it was a round or a square, whatever you're comfortable with. And I'm just going to scoot in. This is going to be where her broom is, but I'm going to tuck that under there a little bit. I'll just be looking at my sample as I go. I know it's just going to be blue in here. My paint is pretty thin. I watered that down a bit much, but I really not worried about it because it's just a base for me to do some more brush work after. Just the little details. And I think it even goes down under here. Her little arm is overlapping behind. This one I made a little smaller because she's further in front, a little bit distance there. And I was trying to make their little feet so it looked like they were walking, but they basically just turned into dark little rectangle shapes. And that served enough. I think I was getting too detailed with the feet. And sometimes you struggle and try to get more detail than you really need. Okay, then just down here, under here was a little blue. And again, I can tell where this needs to go just by looking at my sample a little bit. And now just again, to get this covered, I'm going to put some of the base colors down here. And I'll just go with a little bit bigger brush than, a little smaller than that real big one. All right. And even though if I want it to be light, like this is going to be like a lighter yellowy, I need to start a little darker. I think I might grab some burnt sienna actually, which is the reddish brown. That's a nice fall color. I have some fall colors that I tend to gravitate towards when I'm doing fall things, and burnt sienna, the yellow ochre color, different shades of orange, and they mix nicely together even to build up to a lighter. But I do like burnt sienna. And I did get burnt umber out over here on my plate, but burnt sienna with some Payne's gray gets just as dark a brown, so I really didn't need to have that, but I have them both now. Okay. Oh, look, see, there's that little spot. I knew there was some little spot I was missing there. Just on this side of the hat. Okay. The dark areas that are under their feet is going to be a wash afterwards, but I am going to start a little darker than my bright yellow. So I've got a little burnt sienna there. I might go right into a little orange at the same time. So this is going to be my goldy area, but I am starting a little darker because then, if you don't have that dark to start, you can't get, your light's not going to pop. And we talk about that a lot, but you understand that. So it's just going to go under them, and I'm just dipping in, sometimes burnt sienna, sometimes orange, sometimes yellow ochre, deep ochre, whatever the brand. Different brands have different names for that same color. Might get a little lighter up here. Again, just glancing at my sample there. Then we're going to get dark over here, darker than here even. And it's going to be like a ground covered with leaves, so it doesn't have to be blended smooth. And so I'm just going to use some different colors just so it's not so boring. So if I have these fall colors just out on my palette, I can sort of dip into them. Even go in a little bit so it's just not a perfect triangle, can almost be in and out a little bit. And I'm going to just dry that brush off, and I'm going to go into my burnt sienna, maybe some burnt umber. I'm going to get a little darker. I'm going to go into a little Payne's gray or black even. I want it a bit darker, not solid black, but getting towards that look. And again, I don't want a perfect triangle like this, so I'm going to kind of bring it in on top, in. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Might bring that in and out a little more. What is that color? Oh, that's alizarin. Well, alizarin is a nice dark color too. I could do a little of that. It helps me with how I want to get bits of what's on my palette in different places in my painting. So where I'm saying darker on these sides, I'm not saying dark, have to put this color here, that color there. Just go to your darker colors that are on your palette now. And I went into this alizarin because it looked black to me, but I kind of like the way that looks. I could do Payne's gray. A lot of times when I'm doing anything with a path like this, I sort of like to come in like this and have it, the light's going to spread out in there a little bit. And I do know that's going to be a little darker under them, so I could just do that. But I'm going to do a nice wash afterwards of Payne's gray under where they're standing, walking. Okay, so that's a base coat. I'm going to hop back up here now and get some of those little trees in there that I want, that little, almost like a wash. And I could use my liner. I may just do some with the chisel edge of my flat, and then I'm going to go back with my liner to do some of the finer ones. So I'm going to just go right to my Payne's gray, but if you have a Prussian blue with Payne's gray or some sort of a darker blue, I think that's what I want to use. And I'm going to thin that down. I'm going to thin it down quite a bit because the first trees I'm going to have super light, then I can build them up darker. They're going to start, the base is always a little wider, and then it's going to get thinner as it goes up. I don't want them stick straight, so I might just start, somewhere and just see, I can just wiggle the brush. And it keeps it from being like a perfectly straight tree. A lot of times birch trees are a little bit more straighter than other trees, but, and I could start down here just so it doesn't just start up in the air. And I want some, like I said, super watery. And you can start putting some branches. And like I said, even back here, I know we're not going to see much of them, but you can always start over here, and that's good little practice strokes. But it'll just, if we see bits of it peeking through the branches of the heavier and closer trees, it's just kind of nice. So that looks like there's trees, they're walking into the forest. So there's trees, even though there's a path, there's trees here and there. I have hardly any pressure on my brush. And sometimes, I do go like this and come towards me. You can do that. But to keep it loose, your paint is so thin, it's not going to be, the mark you make is not going to be so solid. It has to be perfect. I really just like to take a real loose hold to my brush sometimes and press it down. And then almost like I'm twisting it. It's parallel there to the surface. I could press it down and get a thicker line. This is super, super thin, but I think it's kind of nice to just have fun with it. Can hardly hold that brush. I'll come and do some that are a little heavier now. So I got a little bit there. Now, if I just go with less water, I'm still thinning it, but less water. I could have some here that are a little heavier. So say we do this, and I do want to do some branches. And if I need to now, if it gets too thick, I can go and use my liner brush, but these are sort of working. I don't think I need the liner brush, but if you don't have a nice, this isn't really a great chisel edge, but if you get a nice chisel edge, you can get a thin line, but don't feel like you have to. You can certainly jump in with a liner. So any of those work. And I want to get some more branches. So you can see how light some of these are on the back, and now this is just a little more pigment to it. And you could go ahead, so there's one here that's real washy. I could go right like over it a little bit. And I think I will do some really thin branches with my liner brush now. So, it's still paint is thinned a little bit. And these can almost be thinner, like a little bit of thinner. I have to remember sometimes too that I like to make my branches kind of like tapered up like this and wiggle out, but sometimes they go more horizontal. Trying to mix it up a little bit. I'm not worried too much over here. We'll do a few, but those basically are a lot of them are gonna be covered. Most of, they may show up down here though, so I could just do some work there. Oops. Hi, Gail. Welcome. So yeah, I want to get us a little more over here, just mostly at the bottom.
Yeah, I'm here. Came late, had a phone call.
That's okay. We just started. All I did was put a little teal on the background. I'm doing a few little trees that are washy. Um, we'll get some heavier ones with more detail after. And I just put down just some colors down here, darker fall colors here, lighter here. What we'll do is just build up layers of just dabbing on leaves. So you really didn't miss anything at all. Um, Now I'm going to put in the trees that are going to be the closest that are growing right out of here, a few. And on my sample, I did tend to cover them up a bit. I'm going to try to make this one lighter, but I want these to be more solid. So I could just go just almost solid paint. I'm using a little water because I'm painting on this paper surface that is just grabbing the paint a little bit. But here I want it to be solid, and I may even just take some regular black in there if I need to. And I'm going to kind of go down here and these are one, you can see that's almost a solid. And I just want some that are closer to us, and they're going to have the big boughs of leaves on here. And again, I do want to have some branches. These are all background things. These ones are in more foreground. And we're going to put our leaves on them. I'm going to do some on each side like that. And I can start a little bit down into that goldy area. Again, you don't have to be too careful with you know, every stroke. Just getting, but you can see I always start bottom up and then branches from the trunk out because I can press down and taper. And that just makes it more natural looking than if you were to, you know, wouldn't want to start out and come in. It just wouldn't work. Okay. Now I want those to dry good before I start putting on the leaves. I'm going to bring this side up a little more because I am going to have the trees come all the way up. So it still needs a little bit like of a skeleton for leaves, something for the leaves to cling on to. Okay, let's let that dry good. Why don't we go in and work on our witches' outfits, and then we're gonna go back and layer on our trees, then our dabs for our leaves, and same down here. And down in the bottom, it gets pretty abstract looking. So you could layer your leaves more carefully as leaf shapes, or if you like this look, I kind of like the way these things, the colors just dabbed in. And for some reason, this little teal almost was an accident, but it really worked nicely, I thought, down here. So you can clearly see this is dark behind here, but you can still have lights, the pinks and the teals on top. I did a little purple even. I want to bring in the color of her outfit a little bit. Her outfit, I may lighten it up on this version we're doing tonight, so it's just not so close to the black. But we'll see as we get there. So we will just start with the color of their outfits and then add some highlights and some shadows. And I see a little bit of blue I have missed again there. Let me move I kind of keep getting my plate off the camera there, but I'd like you to see a little bit of that. All right, so she's a purple outfit in there, and you can use a purple you have, or I just mix the quinacridone magenta with some of the blue to get purple. And you can get more of a pink purple or blue purple, whatever you like. I'm going to add a little bit of white just so we can see that color looks so dark until we add some white. It's hard to see. So I've got kind of a little bit of a mid-tone towards a dark purple I like. I'm going to just lay in for her outfit. So her hat and her cape and dress. I'm going to come back with a little bit thinner brush to get a point on her hat, but I'm going to use this little flat brush just because I can get a little bit, you know, more covered at a time. All we're going to see from the hair is the back. You can change these colors up of their little outfits. You could give them different color hats than their dresses. You could do some polka dots or some patterns on there. There's so many ways to go. I almost was going to do some patterns because I do love that sort of thing, but I thought I'd keep them sort of simple. And if you wanted to, you can go ahead and do whatever you like with them. But I just want to get this purple robe and hat done. We'll do their shoes after. They're just black or Payne's gray, dark. And I just am going to grab my little thin brush just to get a nice little point on the tip of the hat. I kind of lost that with my flat brush. While this is even wet, I may just take some white on the dirty brush. And I know the right side of my hat is going to have a little highlight, so I could go down while it's still a little wet almost and put that little lighter side in. Let me hold that a little closer. Whoops, I didn't mean to go into the paint, but so it's hard to see there, but I'm going to get it a little brighter. So I didn't wash my brush, but I just picked up clean white. I go right to the edge. Now I don't want it to look like a harsh line like that, but if I just wipe off the brush on the paper towel and now just blend that a little bit, I've kind of got middle tone and a light on the right side, and I'll get a little darker on the left side. I'll get a little darker on the hat band, but I am going to put a little bit of that light on the right side of this part of the hat, the brim. And I'm just kind of moving it around with that brush. It's sort of dry now, just to sort of blend it. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I didn't want to have a harsh line. I even did a little white just on the chisel bit of the edge there across the outside edge of her hat. So it's not super blended, but you can see it's a little lighter here. If it needs more, just go back. And I don't mind leaving it a little rough like this because we're going to have so many little dabs of color. the overall look of the painting is a little bit brush strokey, so I don't mind that being that way. And we hardly see any of her dress. She's in front of these other two, so I'm doing the same thing, dirty brush with just some white. And I just went, and now this is actually dried underneath, so now it's not blending for me. But I'll just deepen it up a little bit. I kind of just did some little C strokes almost on her, like it's gathered a little bit. That's a little bit too obvious, but now I'm just going to go and get back into my pink, back into my blue. I'll mix up a little bit of that purple again. And it's almost like probably worthwhile just to do the hat and then maybe do your base coat of purple on your gown so it stays wet when you want to come back and give it a little highlight. I'll go back in now and just helps with the blending if both areas are wet. Much softer that looks than what we had before. And since it's still a little wet, I can go a little bit more white on my brush. I could even do a little white on that side of her arm. I didn't on my other one, but. And again, we don't need to do too much with her because these two witches' arms and hands are going to be over it. We won't even see this much. That almost looks a little to me that it's too perfect with these little gathers. I'm going to just get the little dark back in there. That's enough that we need for her because she's so far off, we're hardly seeing her. We will, after we get them painted, we'll put their little hat bands on. And why don't we go ahead and go to the pink witch now, because we can almost use some of that dark purple or alizarin crimson for the dark shades, but let's get the middle tone in. So I've got quinacridone magenta. Let's see how that looks by itself. That's pretty good. But I'm going to do it separate this time. Let's just do the hat first. That way we can get it highlighted before the paint dries. She's a little bigger, so I'm going to just kind of paint a little around the hat band. You can see this is a little bit of a transparent color, so you can see through it a bit. So we may just do 2 coats, but let me just get the top of the hat done too. And I want some a little bit darker 2 shades there. So I think I'm taking this brush with quinacridone and I'm just going to dip it into my Payne's Gray maybe a little bit. Payne's Gray on the blue side, so it's looking like a dark purple, but I might get down that dark side on the left because I can blend it so easily while the paint is wet. It's going to be dark underneath the hat band, but I don't want to leave it, just like that. So I'll just dry the brush off and just soften it a little bit. I did this whole little area a little dark on the back. And now I'm going to just wash my brush off, go back in the quinacridone, almost like re-wet it, but also using that as the second coat to cover some of my streakiness. And then I'll go ahead and do my light. So I'm just taking just the quinacridone, just what we did, put it on there a little bit. It just covers a little more for that, like I said, that streakiness. And I can use that and go right over even where my dark was because it's not going to take it away. It's just kind of deepen it a little bit. And now we'll do that light side just like we did on the purple. I'm just going to dry off the brush, use the dirty brush, just take some white, take a lot of it off. We don't want to have it too bright. And because it's still a little wet, I can go right up that right side, but then dry off the brush and just blend it a little bit. And that's going to be the same thing we're going to do for this side of the hat. It's going to be a little lighter, so I'm going to just go right over that with the white. It's blending in with the wet paint underneath, which is perfect. And I'm just going to bring some of the light down that way. I'm going to do a little bit on this side. Now I feel like the paint, I can feel the quinacridone is drying a little bit. It's kind of sticky. If I feel like it's not blending like I want, I could just go right into the pink and I'm almost just re-wetting it a little bit. And that just helped it blend. I did the same thing with some white along the brim of the hat. It just separates the hat from the body. And I'm just going to go along the edge. And again, you could use a round brush if you found that you didn't want to try to do the thinner line with your flat. And so you can see that little line there. And I don't, sometimes I would go and make it a little lighter, but I think that's light enough for the scene that we're doing here. And I think it is easier to do just the hat than come down and work on the body. It gives us time to blend a little bit. So this is going to be a little bigger area. So let me get a little bit bigger flat brush for the outfit there. So let's just try. We'll try this size. So we're going to do the same procedure though. We're going to just take the quinacridone and fill it in. And you can even see how it's a little streaky, but that's okay. Let's just get the outfit just with the pink for now. So you would do the same if you decide, well, I want to do an orange witch outfit or green. Same technique, you just pick sort of a middle tone of what the green you want to use. I've just kind of hit my line there. I can go over that after. And then just while it's wet, work in the lighter shade. Sometimes if it's a green, you'd want to use the yellow as the lighter shade, maybe, so it didn't get to be like minty green. It would get like just a richer green. And this is going to dry fairly quick, but again, we're putting a second coat anyway, so let's just get that on there. Okay, actually I go out to here. I thought so. Okay. This is helping me get the shape. We're going to put hair in here too. That's going to kind of cascade down her back a little bit. You could again change up hair color, make them any color. You can make a braid. You can make crazy witch hair if you want to. Her little arm is coming up here, and this is kind of one of these sleeves that has those long trailing bits. And actually, it's just connected to the dress. So now it's just all the middle shades. So we need to get some darks and lights in there. But again, I'm on the paper, so yours is probably not going to dry this fast, but I'm going to quickly just give it a little bit more paint just so it's wet. It gives me something to blend into. I'm going to take a little bit of white, and I kind of put white just on the half of that brush, but I'm going to get a little bit light here and up the arm. I'm going to get white down that sleeve a little bit. Same here, just on the top of the sleeve. And then down this little, is it like, they call those kinds of sleeves with that long traily bit. So that we can show that this long sleeve is in front and just not like a weird shape for her outfit. We'll get a dark shadow in here after, a little darker. So I just sort of did like they were folds. So we'll go a little lighter there. And I can almost just sort of blend it in as I go. I'm going to get a little more of the white again. Again, I'm putting it just like on a side of the brush. Pat it off a little bit. And this is going to be another little fold. And bring it across the bottom just to even that up. But I want to just blend it a little if I can. So I'm just taking that brush. It's almost dry, but just blending. Same thing. I'll take a little more white. I'm going to get this down this way. I'm going to fix that. I don't like the way it goes too far that way. One last fold here. It's really getting dry. If I have to, I'll just pop in a little bit more of the pink. I kind of made this look like it was a little piece of the fabric, the cape turned backwards. So I'm going to go right along the bottom there. I'm going to try to just make that shape. And I want to fix that because I didn't love the way that it looks too accordion folded. It's got to be a little bit less, a little bit not quite going up into those points. So I'm just going to bring a little of that pink down. And make it a little bit back of that. And I just want it softer, a little bit softer here. And then we need some darks in there. So I just dried the brush off. I used a little bit of alizarin, I think, or no, I used the quinacridone with a little bit of Payne's gray, which gave me that kind of a dark purpley for a dark. Her hair's going to kind of come down to about here, say. So I do want it a little bit of a shadow under there. This is a good time as this is kind of drying and not moving for me. If you had like a medium that you used to extend the drying time, this is where I sometimes would grab little tiny drops of that. But you can also just re-wet with a little bit of the quinacridone too. I don't have to go that far up because I'm going to have that hair coming down. So I'm going to get a little dark maybe at the bottom of the side of this sleeve. And where I've got these folds where the dark shadow side is, I'll get a little bit of that in there. Just taking up little bits of that dark purpley color. Same here. It's going to be a little dark here. But I never want it to look, I don't want to go in here like this and let me just get a little more of that. I don't want to go on and just say, okay, this is going to be dark. It goes up this side and then it looks just a little too perfect. I like to, smudge it out a little bit to make it just a little bit more blendy. And then when I stand back, that might be too dark and I can just put a few highlights in it. But trying to get in between these folds a little darker. And I know you guys are going to not have as much problem with it drying as fast. And I want that dark here to separate that sleeve from the cape, say. So that means this would be dark right in here. Dark line is in there. I don't want it to be too much of a line, so I'll just kind of soften it a little bit. And that's not too bad. I think I think it might be a little too foldy, but I could just take a little bit of the base color of the quinacridone and soften it a little bit if I thought that was the case. But I think that's a good start. And a little bit of dark here because it's going to be like that little fold of the cape that's sort of, let me get a little darker here because that's going to be just flipped over here. And to help that look, I would just make it look like this is the fold here. It's kind of up like that. And I had some dark all along the bottom of these folds. I'm going to leave her outfit as is. We'll come back and do hat bands. And I did go and put a little bit, actually, I probably did it with the chisel edge of my flat, but you could certainly just take, since the pink is dry, if it was wet, I would just take white over and it would mix in with the pink. So I'm just going to make a little bit of a lighter pink here. And I just got a little lighter area to edge that sleeve. And that one is not showing up enough, so a little more white. Like I did on the edge of their hat brim, and I kind of lost that a little bit on hers. So I'll just do that again. And if as I'm going, I'm just judging on things. It's like, oh, well, maybe the front of this hat should be a little whiter. I could just put a little highlight in there if I need to. And let's go. She's going to have a black hat and cape, black or Payne's gray. I might have gone more black, but let me just see what it looks like when I put it on. Let's start it with the Payne's gray. I might need just a more of the black, even though it's very close, but into the dark areas. But let's start it with this because I want her highlights to be more of a light blue. You know how when I do anything black, dog fur, people's hair, whatever, we're not going to highlight with white because then it just looks gray. We're going to we want it to be light blue for the highlight areas. She's got that little sleeve too, like bat wings or something, whatever those sleeves are called. Oh, and I started with the dress. So let's just do the dress, then we'll hub up to the hat. I'm finding it's just going to be too dry to try to do both. And I'm just filling it in, kind of just smoothing it out so there's not too many ridges. And again, this kind of sleeve. All right, I'm going to see now. It's very wet. I'm going to see if I can't get. I'm going to take the white on the little corner of the brush like we were doing. And I'm going to see how blue that comes out. It's not bad. I might come back with a little more blue, but I just want the top edge of that little sleeve to be light, down the sleeve. Dry that off so that I can blend it a little bit. It gives me a light, but I think I'm going to get it a little brighter with light blue after, but let's just get the light in there while we can. And the edge is going to be a little light. I'm going to just flip this a little bit so I can have this little edge of the plate to work on, not go into the pink. So it's a little bit of a contrived way that I'm doing their outfits, just folds kind of fabric. This one might just be light on both sides. And this little sleeve as well. This brush is getting to be a little big for this little area, but in the front of the sleeve. I'm going to use and get the darks in there now, and then I will go and make that a little bit more light blue. I mean, it looks okay like that, but I always like to add a little color to something that's sort of grayish. So let's just get a little real black maybe and paint gray in the darks. So I really want a dark shadow in between where the light sort of starts. Got a couple of those done, and now while it's wet still, I can sort of blend it. Makes just a little depth in there. And you get why I'm tucking it in these spots, because it's a little brighter here, a little brighter here. This fold is indented a little bit, so I am just tucking in there to get the shadow. It'll be a little bit of a shadow under her hair too, so we'll get that a little dark, and then just tucked into the sleeve, so it's, I'm going to bring that in a little bit. I'm kind of reshaping her little arm a little bit there. Okay. I'm going to bring the hat that far, and then we'll just give it some light blue highlights, and we're going to put, I just used a little black for their hat bands, and I did a little light blue highlight on the hat bands. Sometimes I have to really try to keep it a little simpler. So again, we started with Payne's Gray, so we'll do the same thing for the hat. Get that point. And this big hat. I was dying to get lime green in here because I do love lime green and purple and on witches and things, but I was trying to keep the palette. With lime green would not have worked with the aqua and teal colors, I don't think. So I just basically filled that in with the Payne's Gray. Dry off that brush so I can pick up some white. And we're going to do the same thing with the white on the right side of that hat. And just soften it in. And I did a little white, very much like what we did here, a little white on this side. A little white on the edge over here. Went a little heavy with the white there, but let's see. I think you can see there if I could just soften that in. And let's just leave that for now, because I want to do a little, just over that light, I'm going to do just a little bit of a, maybe kind of a tealy blue or something. We'll see. But let's just get some little hat bands on them. I'm going to go right with black just to make it, and it's just a little stroke for a hat band. Maybe a little thicker there. Okay. Let's let that dry a little bit. We can put their brooms in now. We can put, oh, their hands. I'm going to just mix up. You could pull out a flesh color of any sort, but I don't, I have it right over there. But if I just take a little bit of white, so just to show you how to mix up, especially where it's just their hands, a little bit of white, maybe just a touch of the pink, some orange. I can get a nice flesh tone there. And all they have for little hands really is on, I just made them like little half moons shapes coming out from, actually, there's nothing for the first one. She's got a little bit of a hand holding onto her broomstick. These ones were just, I just needed to add them so it just looked weird without them. That grew, it's a little big. This one over here is gonna hold her broomstick. Now let it dry and I might just give them a little bit of a lighter highlight there.
Cheryl, when you're deciding what we're gonna paint,
Yep.
do you sketch it out and then paint it so you can see it? And while you're painting it, are you taping it? Or
No, I just paint it. If I really knew what I was going for and had painted it before, I could record it. But I usually always paint the samples first, then I make a tracing from the painting because I'll make a little drawing and I'll trace it on. But then I change it a little as I'm painting. So at the end, what I do is I trace what the painting came out like. And then like the witch here, if I ever had recorded it, it would have been like 3 hours long of me starting over, because this one I started over so many times. I didn't like the way the leaves were, I didn't like the shape of the dresses, so I had to nail it down with a finished painting. Then I can teach it a little better because I can usually look at something and teach it from what it looks like rather than all the steps that I took. It's probably a lot less steps than when I first started, if that makes sense. But if it was something that I know I've painted a bunch of times, I could probably go ahead and record it as I'm painting it. But I like to just do it first, see what it looks like, and then, then I have it down in my head sort of. So just little tiny feet that they're almost like just little half rectangles, but your eye is going to see them as their feet. We're going to get shadows and we're going to dab leaves, so I think that's fine. You know what, I'm going to use that same dark. I'm going to get a really dark brown for their broomsticks. I'm going to get some whatever brown I could grab and some black or Payne's gray. I like to make the broomsticks kind of crookedy. I see your message, Lisa, about the Hocus Pocus. Do you know I never saw Hocus Pocus till I finally watched it last year? Or whenever the new one was coming out, I said, I can't really go see it unless I have seen the original. So I finally watched it. I don't know how I missed it, but it was good. It was cute. I wanted to put the end of the little broom with like a little curly Q thing. I don't know if you see it that much once we get all the leaves in, and I've kind of attached it now to this tree trunk, but I'm going to put something in here later maybe to separate it. She's got a little bit of a broom showing through to this one up front, but it's smaller. And I want to highlight it with some orange so it really stands out, but let's let that dry a minute. For the little end of the brooms, I just use some of my browns and fall colors. It's sort of shaped like this. And then it has a little bit of those same little bits coming down. So I'm just going to get something in to cover the white of the background there. And this is, I'm starting sort of dark, and she's got a little bit of a broom behind there. I'm going back and forth like that just to kind of get the texture start to build up like a broom. I might go in with some gold even. And this is going to be covering up at least the white of the background. I'll put some finer and lighter strokes as we build up. But I do need to get a little dark in there sometimes. Just a few dark strips, just to, again, so that the light ones show up. We're going to use the liner brush and do some detail on those brooms, but let's leave it at that for now. I'm going to just take my thin brush, or you could use a round brush. I'm going to take maybe burnt sienna. It might not show up a lot, but I'm going to just, maybe on the left side of the broom handle here, I'm just going to go with a little bit of the brown. Just leaving a little bit on the right side of the real dark. And when this is dry, I'm going to go on with some orange to make it pop. But if I do it now, it will mix with the brown, so it won't be as bright. So let's just let that dry a bit. I know it's hard to see there, but I just did it in the dark, and then I just went And I know it doesn't show on camera, but I've taken just burnt sienna and just did those little crookedy lines down the left side of the broom. While I have that though, and I have my liner brush in my hand, I might as well thin down some of that burnt sienna, and I could make a few more little straw lines. And I wanted to make it not look like a little perfect broom. I wanted to have little bits sticking out. And even though it's barely anything showing here, let's get a little detail on her little room. All right. I think I'll do the blue, the light blue highlights. And let's get a little bit on their hat band. So I really just took, I know wanted more of a blue. So let's go back. This is our phthalo blue here, but mix it with some white so it's lighter. Let's see how this works more than in a teal. And I simply just did a little strip, a little highlighter on each of them. Just like that, just kind of, just a little light blue. Now I know it shows up as white. And sometimes if it looks too much like white, it looks a little blue on mine, but on the camera it looks a little white. But I have no problem going even bluer sometimes on these things. Oh, I didn't do the light bit along the edge of her hat. So I'm going to do that kind of with the lightish blue because I want to get my highlights on her a little light blue. So I'm going to go right along the edge of her hat that I wanted light, and maybe along this edge that I wanted to be more blue. I don't want to use the thin line down here of it, so I'm going to get my flat again, that light blue we're putting on. And I'm just going to see how it, yeah, I like the way the light blue looks a little bit more for the lighter areas. I've got light blue on my brush here. It's a little thin, so that's why it's really just almost like a little wash. It's kind of spreading out nice for me. But I did want that little edge of her sleeves with the light. And this looks like it needs to be blended a little bit more. So I'm just going to smudge that a little bit. Then I have to look from a distance and say, oh, is it too harsh of a line? If it is, I could just use this very dry brush with that light and just kind of smudge it a little bit. I think it's okay, but you could get it as light as you want. I want to get a shadow in under the hat band. Her hat is with the black outfit is a little light on the hat for me. So I think if I just take a little black just on the corner of my flat brush, just pat it out a little bit, and just under the hat band, a little shadow there. It sort of sets, it's kind of nice. I'm going to do it on the top too. And actually, I'm going to put a little bit on down the left side. We need to deepen our shadow on her. So down the left side, a little bit of black. And if I need to anywhere down here, if I need to sharpen any darks, they're pretty good. I don't think I really need to. But if you've got very light there, you could just take a little black in a tiny bit on the brush and just kind of softly just put it in where you might need it. But I think she looks okay. And I think I'll do their hair, because then if I want to go back and put something else in on their robes, like if I think it needs something, I want to get the hair in first. You can do different color hair, all the same hair. I just made each one have different color hair. So this one I did black. All you're really seeing, you're not seeing their faces at all. She's almost from the side, but her hat's covering her face. So I sort of just took the black for the hair, and I kind of made hers a little squiggly. So I'm just going to bring in, I'm going to highlight the black hair with the light blue like we did on the witch's outfit. But for now, it's just a little bit of black hair. And I did her kind of a dark brown, then I did some orange on top, so she's a little bit more red. This one is more blonde. So I think I will get a dark brown. So I just took a black or Payne's gray with some of my brown, and we'll lighten it up after, but let's get it in there. More brown, dark brown. She's not needing a shadow on her hair, but these two will have a little wash of a dark when we do the wash by their feet under their hats, but we're not going to worry about that yet. We're just going to get base coats for where hair is going to go. So hers is just a little bit of dark brown filled in. And we can almost use the same color on this one. We're going to go blonder on her. little strokes of hair we put on, but we'll go more red or orangey on this one. So again, it's just going to start as a dark brown. Just get that white of that canvas covered up. You can make them have curlier hair. Like I said, you can make it have braids. You could do funny, crazy witch hair. But that'll just be a start there. I'm going to go back with the lights that I need for the broom. The end of the broom. So now I need to get a little lighter. So let me try some of this goldy color. I may have to put some white with it because I don't know if it's going to show up, but it's not. But I'm going to do some strokes in that just because it gives me a little bright. But then I'm going to add a little white to this and really get a lighter shade, because then it gets a little opaque and it will show up. So I can just do it. You can see again how I go out to the side a little bit just to make it kind of ratty looking. Let's not forget about the tiny bit of a broom showing there. Here we've got a little bit showing behind the hat there. And I'm going to go even lighter. I'm just taking that dirty brush into even more white. And a few really lights. I think I need to deepen up a few spots that are a little darker again there. But we'll do that in a minute. And I'm just going to get a little light blue in a small brush. I'm going to go to my little tiny liner brush for the little squiggles in the hair. And I'm just going to go back to our light blue. And maybe I could pull this up a little bit. So it's really just a few little strokes of squiggly. Again, on camera, it's looking white, but it's light blue. And I just kind of made that squiggly. I'd like to actually bring it down a little bit on top of the outfit too. And that's all we need for her hair. This one over here, I'm going to get a few strokes of dark in there, just a little bit, just so some of my lights will pop. So just a couple of squiggles with the dark. Well, you can make it more straight. I like to do little textures. And then we're going to get some gold in there. Some orange. Orange doesn't show up great, but if I do it a second time when it's dry. So you can just see it's a little bit of orangey and gold in there just for now, but we'll lighten it a little bit. And we're going to go more blondie over here. So we'll get, I think I'll use some of the yellow ochre color, maybe a little bit of that. And bring it down over the robe a little bit. It kind of is nice that way. And I'm going to get some white here into this goldy color. It blends with what's underneath, so it doesn't come out as bright as I'd like, but just gives me a little bit more of a mid-tone, and I can do some lighter ones if I needed to. But basically, we've got a little bit of 3 different color hair there. I can even take some of this light that I'm using here and just put a few strokes here. Just a few strokes. Oh, and the orange on just a little orange on the left-hand side of these broom handles, just to lighten it up. Just tiny little bit one here, we'll put it on there. If it's always too dark, you can always go and put a little bit of like a white or an ivory first, and then add the orange on top. But I think that shows up enough. I don't really want it that bright. It's not the most important thing in the picture, so there's that. And while I am using this brush, let's get some really dark browns, back to some dark browns, just for a few strokes in the broom. I'm going to also just put a little bit of a dark line across the broom there so that I can put a couple of really light, so it's almost like a little string tying that broom together. And I'm just here and there, if there's not enough darks in there, just a few darks. Across that middle.
I think we need to make Pam show hers. No.
Oh, we will. How are you doing, Pam?
It's a mess.
Now you always say that. This one is kind of a mess. You just, once we dab all these little dabs on, it's anything goes. Okay, I'm gonna finish any little strokes that need to on their hair. So this little blondie one has this blonde color, more white. A few little strokes that are light. That's not light enough. Let me just go with straight white maybe, because it's a dirty brush, so. And we're still gonna shade it a little bit, but, and I'm gonna use that dirty brush with the lighter shade in for my orange. Maybe that'll show up a little bit, yeah. So that's a little bit of white with that orange is making the little bits of orange show up a little more. So it's, hardly, you hardly are seeing anything of the hair. Oh, I want to shade their hands, even though they're little blobs, they need a little shading. So I'm going to take, it could just be any dark we have here, maybe something with the dark browns or something. And just where their hand meets, they almost look like they're wearing little gloves, but where their hand meets their sleeve, let's give it a little shadow. And then I'm going to give it a little highlight on the edge. So I just put a little wash, a little shadow close to their hands. I'm going to do the same thing on the outside edge with a little white, just a little touch of it there. And there's nothing to say ever if you don't get the hang of the double loading that you can just go in with your little round brush, put a little light there, dab it off, and just a stroke to blend it. It just saves a step if you just put it a little bit of light. So you can see just that one is pretty bright. I'm seeing it on camera. So if I just dry my brush off and soften that a little bit, we don't want it that bright. But a mid-tone for the color of their little hands. Like I said, they're not even fingers, it's just like little mitts. And a little dark, there's a shadow cast for this from the sleeve, and just a little tiny light on the outside edge. I may just take a little a square brush, get back into this light blue, or make more because it's dried. A little light blue again. And I'm going to just give a little dab to each of their shoes. They look like the black holes here. So if you just a little dab of blue on them, just a little something towards the bottom. So almost like then the darker black makes a little shadow under the gown. So I just smudged a little bit of a light on there. Same way we are loading the brush that way. I've just got a flat brush here now. It's just wet. It doesn't have dripping paint, dripping water, but it's just wet. I take a little black on the corner. Pat it. I always pat it out. Find a little clean spot. And this is where I'm going to get a shadow under the hat on the hair on these two. So I'll just go like this, under that little light, under here, and that sort of sits the hair underneath the hat now. Just a little bit of a shadow. Could have done that the same time we did it with the hands. I could even do that on the broom there. Well, let's see that. I've picked up a little light. Let's just get some of that dark back. I could almost shade the broom a little bit where this is there. And what I would like to do is just take back to that little tiny brush, something light, whatever these light little golds, but mostly white. And I'm just going to do a couple of lines to make it look like the broom, those two little lines there. So just a couple lines that are just holding that together. We don't see it on the small one, so don't worry about that. All right, so that's really all we need for our witches. The rest is going to be the foliage and then dabbing the colors down here. I will probably go to a textury brush for that. So I'll use like one of my hog bristles. If you have a brush that's kind of all worn out and splayed, that you don't care about dabbing with, those work too. I just don't want to use a perfectly good brush, but once I get on top of these looser dabs, I will go back to a nicer brush and just dab the brush easily. But when I start, I'm going to just kind of dab that on. Yellows are super transparent. You'll see kind of the blue through. So let's just start with, just to get something on there, let's just maybe start with our yellow ochre color. I'm going to dab that brush in. I can go heavy with it now. I don't mind texture. And I'm going to just give myself an idea of where I want these little bows of leaves, kind of. I really did too much here. It's just too heavy. I went over it a bunch of times. I'm going to try to go much lighter and airier, and then it's easier to add more. Instead of here, I got too heavy and I had to go and put these darks and blues in. So let's just try to go a little lighter and build up. And so I know I just want areas of where the leaves are going to go. You see, I'm trying to leave blue showing through. I know this is going to be like a little bit of a shape like this of leaves. It's funny, this is looking really light there to you guys, but it's really kind of just that dark goldy. It's just the way the light's hitting it here that it looks so light, and it's shiny because it's wet. But the idea is just to put it on, get an idea where we want that to go. And then I don't want to do it solid. I did it too solid all the way down. I kind of want to do it so I leave a space a little bit. We're not worrying about back here. We're just going to do on the two sides. I can almost think that this is a little bit of a different tree back there, and I almost tended to get too solid here. I gotta really sometimes make myself dab, dab, leave bits of blue between. Again, we can fix that super easy because we'll just go back and put the sky holes in, but why not, if we can, just start light. Down here, we're going to have some shades of this, and I want to separate. I don't want this tree trunk to be way down that far, so I'm just going to dab that over so I can kind of see the fun shape of that broom. And now I just want texture, so I'm just going to dab on everything down here. It's barely different colored than what I have for a base, but it's a little bit different, and it just gives some texture. I could do the same thing here and there. It's going to be a darker area, but I can put a little bit of the goldy bits in there. Same here, just a little here and there. It's not going to cover it up and make it so that you don't see that area anymore. And no matter how I try, it's not going to come out exactly like the other one because it's just so random with the dabbing. But I am just going to try to keep it a little lighter. And I know I have some leaves coming over here falling down, but I'm going to make those with my smaller little flat brush. But this foliage, I want to use this rough brush and just dab.
Cheryl, do you think you could use Q-tips to do that?
I think you certainly could. Yeah, that might be fun. Yeah. There are some, what is this, some trees I saw, Christmas trees or something painted with Q-tips. But yeah, it's always fun to try any of that. I want to leave a little bit more like this of the tree trunks. So I did that with the gold. Maybe I'll just go into some of the other colors I have here and just layer them. We could do a little of the orange. You could probably use your fan brush too. It is fun to do trees with fan brushes. You know, I have a couple here. You know, you could certainly do this with the fan brush and get that kind of dabbing away. I know it's a little bit glary there, but so experiment. It doesn't, you know, again, it doesn't have to be exactly what I'm doing. Use whatever you have to try things. Palette knife, you could go with the palette knife as this is built up and dab with it too. That might be kind of fun. Different techniques, it'll all come out a little different, and we know it doesn't have to all look like the same, you know, one that I did. So again, just while I've got this on my brush, I'm gonna bring it down here, dab it here and there, and it already has a little bit of look of the fallen leaves. And we've done some little fall scenes, I think, like this, where we've done this sort of a path or these colors just dabbed on with some darks and light areas underneath, like the base of it. And I am going to like this built up a little more like this, because I'd rather have it too light than big solid clumps of leaves. I think I overworked mine a little because I was trying to get away from this look. So I think it's going to have a nicer look to this one, really. I used some alizarin, or you could even use some red in here. Red with a little blue in it, or black, Payne's gray. Any fall colors that you have that appeal. Burnt sienna, we'll put some of that. I'm just going to go ahead and grab, it doesn't have to be in this order, it's just I'm grabbing these colors. But when I have any color, I'm going to really go down here, and I know this is a dark color, so I'll go a little bit more in this dark area. It doesn't mean I won't have any out here, so we could just put a few. We know it's dark underneath where their feet are going to be. We could do a little dark there. I'm going to use all these colors later with more precise little square strokes. When we finish it this way, you may like it. You don't have to do the square strokes. But I'll just show you them. I'll just show you some different techniques, and you can pick and choose. And so now that I've got like little sections almost, I could kind of put a few somewhere else, but it's not going to be the whole tree. I kind of like the way that fan brush looked there. I'm going to dab some of that, especially with orange, because orange is a little bit transparent, but if I glob it on a little bit like that, and I know if I turn it just a little bit so you can see, I'm going to try holding it like that. So I just kind of like the way it's heavier in these little spots. So it's just kind of a nice texture I'm finding, and I might do some down here with that. I want to get real darks down just in some of the places down here. So I'll just get like some of the alizarin with some Payne's gray. It's almost looking like a very dark brown, almost a black. See, it's just deepening some of these areas. This side was particularly dark, but again, I'm not going to try to copy it exact because I just want to have it so that when I look at it here, I like the way it looks. It doesn't have to be a copy of the other. There's some darks here and there. Dark again under the little shadow under them. I did a wash under them as well. I want to get some brighter yellows. And again, we have to kind of do that when we add some white to our yellow. So let's just try dabbing some of it and see what happens. It's okay. It's a little muted, but it's another shade, so we'll use it, but then we'll add white to some of these colors to get it a little bit brighter. This is a lot of wet paint here. So I'm more dabbing and leaving it than mixing it. And again, I can go into the little bit of empty areas with a few strokes, but I don't want to. Trying very hard not to make it solid. That was a big, huge blob, but I don't hate it, so. And same down here. It's going to show a little bit, but it's not going to be the brightest. And you can see I'm not going to do it, but it would be kind of, you could really do some nice with your palette knife if you wanted to. Get some nice brights. It applies it so thickly, it just really shows up. This is just my other yellow. It's slightly different, so we'll just add some. I loved in the end with just a few little leaves that are just falling down. You know how on the fall days and the wind blows and the leaves start blowing down. But like I said, when I first did it, I had so many dabs everywhere. It just looked like you didn't even hardly see the witches. It was just leaves everywhere. So I'm going to try to do less is more. And now if we mix any of these golds with some white, you're really going to see how it's going to be more opaque and show up better. And you can see how I don't keep dark area, light area. I don't keep them all dark shades, all light shades. You can see I'm going to take this light shade and dab it here and there on the dark side. It's still having, it's still giving you that shadow, but it's nice to just use that in a lot of places. So either or both of these yellows with a little white will be nice. You can see how it's just popping a little bit. Same with the orange. We could mix the orange. I'll make that more like of a little peach color with some white to it. It's much sparser, but I kind of like it. We can, like I said, build up as much as we need, and you can build up yours as much as you like. I did put some pink and some teals in here too, which was another way where I take colors that are in the painting somewhere and put them somewhere else. I'm gonna just hold this a little further away from myself here. All right, I am going to get some a little bit of shadow in those trees. I did it on my original one to just break through the leaves to the sky, but I think it does need a little dark some places. So if I just take my Payne's gray, let's scooch over a tiny bit. It's just the Payne's gray. It's going to be watered down. It's going to be a little bit washy, so a little bit watered down. And then just inside these trees in places, I'm getting darks, and that's almost a little too solid. I really want it more of a just transparent little shadow. And it was a little darker over here. Some areas down here, I just kind of put that dark blue in just, and it might be a good idea to let your dabbed leaves dry a bit before you you don't want to get this wet paint on those, but I'm going to just do it anyway just to show you, but I'm going to be very careful, just trying to, so I'm just getting just a wash of the Payne's gray or just whatever dark blue you have in here. Gives it a little depth. I think I even got it a little darker in around these guys a bit. I'm going to start putting in some of my little brush strokes with my square brush more now. And I just love this little one. It's a size 8, but I can get almost a smaller little square mark. I have a 6, but it's sort of splayed out, so I get a better look with this little one because it has a better chisel edge. And I just thought this was just too blah. So I'm going to maybe just start with that watered down Payne's gray I had, and I'm going to just use different shades of blues. I'm going to work in this little area kind of, and I'm just going to get some of these little strokes that that I like here and there. And as you go, you could put them in the trees too. I am going to do some blue. I'm going to just use all of these tealy blue colors that I had in the sky and just see what I like and what works. It's just to give some texture. That's a little blue, but I don't mind it. So I'm going to just get a little bit more teal in there. Sometimes some of these teals are just, I'm going in between my branches that I made with my trees with the Payne's gray, but if I hit them in places, it's not a big deal. This was a little bit of blue to me. I'm going to go over those a little bit. Take a little white to that. I have almost like a periwinkle in some places. That's a little bit too bright, but I think I'll go and get this light aquary teal color too. And I don't want to touch this too much, but I would take these, especially if you got a little heavy, you could take and make your little sky holes with these lighter colors. And I just sort of jump around because I like this little texture look. You might like just what you have there. I just sort of love this little look. Even that's enough there. And I did like putting some of that teal down here on this dark side. It was kind of nice. I think I did that less with the little strokes, but I think I just took maybe like something like this and made them rougher. So experiment with the brush strokes. I actually put some purple on this side. I don't know where that came from. Maybe just because I was trying to get a little bit of what her dress was down here. But again, yeah, I had a lot more of the little shapes in the trees because I was doing anything I could to get that sky back. I don't need to do that as much here. But if you see any place where it's just too much leaves, you can just do that little texture. I'm going to use some of those shapes to do my little leaves that are falling down here and some shapes on the tree itself because I'm going to get them a little lighter in places. But I used more of the solid, as it comes out of the bottle, yellows for the leaves falling here. I didn't want them to be the super bright leaves that we have over here. So if I do them like this and they're transparent a little bit, I like that look. So I'm just going to like make some little leaves that are falling. And I know again, that's a little bit glary, maybe a tiny bit of white in that. So just dab them here and there and try to do less is more because I really went overboard my first time around. And these are just the little leaves that are kind of floating off. And some of them go right on top of our little witches, and they could be anywhere. Again, less is more, and I tend to go too much, but I want to do some that are orange too. So maybe a few little orange ones. Maybe a tiny bit of the light with that orange so they show up. And they're a little smaller and they're a little bit more placed with a shape than the big ones I was smushing on before. And I do like to, well, I want to get some with like a little bit of a salmon, a little bit of a peachy color. So I've taken and done some white into my orange because that's a nice shade there that I like. And some of those could be falling down. Some could be on the trees. It just adds another little shade that I like of the peachy color. And you could come back to this later as it, a day or so if it's dried, you can say, oh, I think I want to add some whatever shade of more little leaves. It could be a work in progress. And I want some of this shade down here. And again, I'll bring it even over into the dark area. I really like the way this looks now, so much more than when I did it before with all of those heavy bits.
All right. Oh.
I am going to do a wash again, more of black under them, just to give them little shadows. I did it, like I said, a little bit of purple on there. So let me get back into my pink, a little pink here, and a little blue, and get a little purple. I don't have as much pink as I'd like. Oh, there's some. I just went down on this dark side and did some pink little dabs. I think I actually was I just needed to break mine up so much on this one. I even spattered with the toothbrush on there. I don't know if I wouldn't do it on this one. I don't know if you need it, but if you want to put too solid, sometimes that helps. Maybe I'll do some of this purple in the tree. As much or as little as you might want of that watered down Payne's gray. I might put a little bit more of these little shapes down here, just so it's a little darker blue at the base. And here you could almost just do it, stop or do whatever you want more little lines, maybe some brown down here. I'm going to do my little wash under them because that sort of sets them down. They're kind of floating a little bit there. I'm just going to get a wet brush with a little bit of Payne's gray, watered down a little bit. And I really want it dark kind of underneath them. And I just sort of went back and forth like this just to get it a little darker. Right on all under here for hers should be a little darker. And same here, touching her feet, kind of going back and forth a little bit. I'm almost going to go like little lines of dark here and there coming out. It just helped me place them a little bit. And if you need, I had a little dark actually all around this little area. Just needed to be a little shaded under some of these spots. I think I went and put a little dark in here and there if it needed to. I think this one is good though. I don't think I need to. So what do you think? Anything else you think? I sometimes went a little bit beyond with all of my dabs in these trees. I don't know if I really need that. I think I need a few more little leaves up here falling maybe because I don't see them on the camera. They maybe are here, but let's get a few leaves. I love the way they look on here. That's just enough. But up here we might need, some more, maybe some lighter ones falling. And again, I like this a little lighter, like I have it here, than the heaviness of my first one. You can compare both pictures, but I think it looks like everything I want. I don't want to overdo it like I did my other one. So
I like it.
I think it's good. And like I said, I just like the way this gives texture compared to how it was when it was just kind of empty looking. How are you doing, Pam, in yours?
I'm just having a bad time with the one on the far right.
All right, let's see. I'm gonna
It's her hat. I'm just gonna paint it all
it's
white.
just the shape of it, maybe. I
Yep.
did the same thing on mine. I was going back and forth.
I'm painting it over with white right now, and then I'll
Yep.
go redo it.
Yep. And that's what's great about acrylics, because you can do that.
So here it is.
Here, hang on, let me just get you
Oh, that's cute.
oh yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, I see the one on the lower right. It got to look like a Hershey kiss.
Yeah, it did.
So just make it thinner down to the band. Just
Okay.
cut out the sides a little bit, and the bottom part is just a little wide. So and the pointy part's a little short. So just make that little pointy part longer, right down.
Okay.
I think you're there. It's just, you know how it happens when they grow sometimes and they get out of shape. Oh, Lisa, yeah, metallic in the background would be cool. Metallic copper and gold, not silver, but I would put some gold in there, and some of the copper colors would be really cool. But Pam, on yours, if you, my Boston accent, yours, it just lengthening this little part here, like where you're going to cut it off, and then less here. So it is very easy fix. It just grew a little bit. It's a super easy fix. And then if it's something like that and you really don't like it, put a lot more leaves falling over her hat, and then
Yeah, there's a thought.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is good.
So this obviously is not going to make it to my table this weekend, but I'm planning for it to go in October. So
Oh, I'm sure. And there's not probably a lot that you need to do to that. Once you set it up and look at it and tomorrow or the next day, isn't it amazing? Wait a minute, it looks great now.
yeah.
I even think the little witches wanted, by themselves, like on a little card with just one witch and some trees.
You could. That's what I was thinking too. You could make them less, make them more. You got the little technique down. You could make different color outfits on them. One with some more detail on the outfit as far as like a pattern or something might be kind of cool. Yeah.
I always liked it because Pam's always ready and she paints with you.
I know it. She does a great job.
I'm thinking, I'm not going in there getting them paints out.
Oh, come on.